What are you doing here, bro?
Police.
Get out of my house. Leave.
Okay,
Go.
okay.
Go.
And who are you?
Stop harassing, bro. Leave. You guys gotta go.
So-
You got my door open? Are you guys knocking or are you just trying to knock it down?
Is this your house?
This is my house. I live here.
What's your name?
Don't worry about my name. You gotta get up out of here, dude. It's time for you guys to go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You guys can leave. Have a good day.
Okay.
Stop trying to break into people's house, dude.
The
I
reason
just
is-
seen your guy trying to get into my house, bro. What's your name and badge number?
Okay, have a good day, all right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Have a good day.
That's what ICE is doing. You guys are so pathetic, bro. You guys are so pathetic. Yeah, get up out of here. You guys are clowns. Keep on looking. God bless America, right?
Eduardo Orozco recorded his encounter with supposed ICE agents that refused to show any identification or badge numbers after he caught them trying to break into his house. And when he discovered they already had his father handcuffed in the back of an unmarked SUV, it made sense why they left so easily.
Yo, why are you guys leaving? The police is barely getting here, the real police. Where are you guys going? Huh? What the f? The... Ah! 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 That guy just ran me over. I got it on camera. Ah! Ah! That guy just ran me over.
You need medical attention?
Yes, I do. They just tried going into my house
We're right here. Just calm down.
without permission.
Okay, all right. We'll get your medical attention.
Those guys are just gonna get away.
Now, some comments got on Eduardo for basically forcing the car to drive over his foot before falling to the ground and screaming in pain. But once he discovered his father was wrongfully tossed in the back seat, it kind of looked like he was trying anything to get authorities to act. The local ABC station also pointed out that the attorney representing the plaintiffs says there was a warrant for their oldest son, who was not at the home. And even though their father, Abel, showed identification with his age, the agents took him to an ICE facility for processing. Eduardo said his father has lived here for 27 years and built a business. Now, everything they built is in jeopardy, impacting his employees' lives too. So, as the Orozco family continues to fight for the release of their father, this story is another example of the haphazard way that this administration's presumptive deportation policies has led to people like Stephen Miller to lying to reporters about the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That one is making national news. And no one would be surprised if the main reason Trump's people are fighting this hard to not right the wrongs in the case of Garcia is because there are countless other people, like Orozco, that they don't want anyone to know about.
I promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for anything to get it back?
And
that-
what was the ruling
that your
in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, there was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
Miller still thinks that yelling and pointing fingers while he lies somehow supersedes judges and court rulings that everyone can review to see just how much he's lying. This is his idea of a 9-0 win from the Supreme Court. In its ruling Thursday, the Supreme Court said the district court order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. But Miller just ignored it and went on a Fox News propaganda tour, maybe hoping MAGA would want to attack the Supreme Court the way it did at the Capitol after Trump lost in 2020.
Your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article II foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. We've been living through a hoax. Nobody was mistakenly sent to El Salvador. He was ordered deported from this country in 2019. He's an illegal alien. His home nation is El Salvador. That is where he belongs.
Actually, they didn't win it handily at all. To this end, the court hereby amends this order to direct that defendants take all available steps to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia to the United States as soon as possible. The judge, who was backed up by the Supreme Court, wrote. And oddly, he was also wrong that Garcia wasn't wrongfully deported or that he's a gang member that has shifted from MS-13 to Barrio 18, whichever one they can think of in the moment. That empty accusation that's never been proven somehow cancels out the fact that the Trump administration itself called it an administrative error and an oversight. You know, the propaganda is fast and consistent while being repeated by other Trump officials to keep people from discovering the truth.
Jesse, you know, when you're listening to all these liberal reporters, they keep calling him a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's part of a foreign terrorist organization. He's a member of MS-13 who, as you laid out in your monologue, came to this country and committed just gang acts. He was caught, and he was two judges, an immigration judge and an appellate judge, ruled that he was an MS-13 member as well as ICE's testimony. Yet his attorneys are saying he's not affiliated with the gang. They're wrong, and he has no right to be there. But for an extra step in paperwork, just like you said, he would go right back to El Salvador, which is his home country, where he belongs. And President Bukele does not want to give him back to the United States, nor do we want him back.
Right, so that's it.
The expectation that they can just invent laws and legal immigration processes while blatantly disregarding court decisions is peak MAGA. It's why the audience that only watches the regurgitation of this president's fear-based propaganda never gets the actual story, blindly calling everything else just some fake news.
A judge has blocked his deportation there because his life would be in danger.
The migrant's wife and 5-year-old son are U.S. citizens. He was on board one of those planes filled with Venezuelan and Salvadoran migrants deported to El Salvador last month, all of them alleged to be criminals and or gang members.
But as we have reported, there is reason to believe some may not be.
ICE officials now admit this man was not supposed to end up at the notorious Sicotte prison in El Salvador. Vice President J.D. Vance called Abrego Garcia a convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here.
Is Kilmar a gang member?
He's not a gang member. The allegations against him are based on whispers and shadows.
What is clear is that Abrego Garcia fled gang violence in El Salvador when he was 16. In 2019, an immigration judge issued a grant of protection, which prohibits him from being deported back to his home country for his safety. This case is shining new light on the cases of other men whose families say they were sent to Sicotte in error.